Whatever happens, whether his next game is good or bad, it's a safe bet that Sonic is never going to stop running. This guy goes fast, and he goes hard, hitting loops and bouncing off bumpers like a living pinball, collecting jingling rings and slamming himself into robots with wild blue abandon. Sonic's track record has been pretty decent in the last few years, and by alternating between flat side-scrolling and 3D world running, and successfully preserving its momentum, Sonic Lost World ends up being another one of the good ones.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff!
But the road to a good Sonic game can be rough. There are miraculously few cheap deaths in this newest Sonic, which is something of a feat on its own, but it might be that a few slip-ups and stumbles are inevitable when you're speeding along at this pace. There are definitely times when the game feels out of control, and attempting tricks that have worked for other characters in other games risks making Sonic look like a wannabe. Even while trying to juggle so many things at once, Sonic is able to make it to the finish line in pretty good shape. Sonic Lost World is a game making an honest attempt to be both a race course and a playground. On one hand, this hedgehog's gotta go fast. His name is Sonic after all. Lost World isn't the speediest Sonic game ever, but there's a good sense of velocity, particularly in certain 3D sequences where Sonic literally can't stop moving forward. On the other hand, some players want to slow down and explore. Golden rings are strewn all over the place to help you soak up hits from robotic baddies, but getting your hands on each of the 5 red star rings, hidden in each level, can take some effort. Snagging them is considerably more rewarding than playing the simple balloon-popping carnival games they unlock on the game's mostly decorative, hexagon-based map. Because the game shows you which red stars you're missing, there's a definite temptation to fill them in. The game exuberantly takes you through one type of gameplay to another, and you'll rarely be doing the same thing for too long. Some levels are 2D, some are 3D, some levels switch back and forth as you go. You might find yourself looping around the surface of cylindrical pipe worlds or small planets, blasting from one sphere to another, or you might roll up into a ball yourself to travel across an icy landscape. It's not difficult to see that Sonic is cribbing some ideas from his old rival Mario, but while it doesn't match Mario Galaxy's inspired design, the concept works fairly well, and Sonic also has plenty of his own ideas anyway, even if some of them are recycled from older games. The variety and unpredictability are great, but that next activity around the corner isn't always as enjoyable as that thing you were just doing. Temporary power-ups called wisps, brought over from Sonic Colors, introduce different ways to navigate a level, but they don't really feel like they belong, and often require you to figure out unintuitive motion controls. Because Lost World's lengthy, multi-part missions have to be completed in order, you can't really seek out the type of gameplay you enjoy the most. You'll simply have to roll with the game's uneven pace and force your way through the rough spots. You could take a break with 2-player races between antenna-sporting Sonic clones, with the Wii U gamepad providing a screen for the second player. There's not much chance for players to interact with each other, but collecting the rings of your fallen friend might bring a smile to your face. It's way more fun than tagging along as a borderline useless co-op RC vehicle. Even with so many different twists on the action, the way you control the game is basically the same no matter what you're doing. You'll use the right trigger frequently to speed yourself up and bounce, run, or flip off obstacles, which helps to address the classic Sonic problem of coming to a dead stop when you run into an object. But while the controls are consistent and generally function in each type of situation, some things are consistently awkward. The way your homing attack automatically locks onto enemies never quite feels right, especially when you're moving through tighter 2D spaces.
We're all gonna die eventually.
There are actually 2 types of homing attacks to use, a spinning ball and a kick, that can send one enemy careening into another. While there are a few times when it makes logical sense to give something the boot, being able to kick only makes the game slightly more complicated, without really making it that much more interesting. Then again, taking the time to fight enemies can seem beside the point in Sonic games. Sometimes, though, you'll use enemies as a means to reach the next platform, and at the end of each themed world, you'll need to smash yourself into big bad bosses to clear a path toward your next stage. Lost World has a few interesting title fights with its wacky bunch of evildoers known as the Deadly Six. Sometimes they're inventive and fun, sometimes they're weirdly anticlimactic. Depending on whether or not the touchy lock-on mechanic triggers multiple times at once, what would be an exciting battle can be over too quickly to fully enjoy it.
Violently disappointed.
Even though the cartoonish story is clearly meant for kids, Sonic Lost World is built for Sonic fans, who have stuck around for game after game. And it borrows a few things from other games too. Lost World nearly trips over itself to find a compromise between pure speed and stopping to smell the roses, but unlike many other Sonic games, this one does a pretty good job.
That was cool. Pun entirely intended.